What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Ismi Hongos, and today we're going to be looking over a $250 mistake, which is this Neewer slider. Now, a slider is not an uncommon tool used in filmmaking, but there's definitely a range of sliders that you can purchase, and the one that I got was the most affordable from a reputable brand, Neewer. Am I saying that correctly? Let me know down below in the comments. But I've always used their products, the ring light that I'm using now, past lights that I've used to get my production going. They've never really failed. So when I used this slider, it was a little disappointing. Let's go over the build quality and why I personally don't like this slider. Looking at the price tag of this tool, we see that it can range from $239 all the way to $279 depending on what time of the year you get it. The reason that there's two versions with two price tags is because one of them comes solely with the app and the other with a traditional analog stick. Regarding the price, I think it's important to recognize the category that this tool is in. Sliders traditionally have been very, very expensive. So at a $200 price tag, it's not too bad. But here, I don't think that it's a just price for what you're getting. And we'll be discussing why further down the video. Neewer really went out of their way to make this slider look particularly nice even from a mile away. The inner rails are carbon and the outer is aluminum. Plus, it's a relatively cheap slider for its category. I've held sliders that are very, very heavy. But when it comes to transporting this, you're going to have to probably disassemble it and assemble it again because they provide you with a pretty decent looking bag. But because of the side battery, you're not going to be able to carry it everywhere. And assembling this slider does take a bit of time. I'll link down a video down below for you to watch. The only particular part that feels cheap in this build is where you're going to place your camera. It does feel a bit finger loose, but I find that that was okay. I never really ran into any issues with my camera falling off. I personally didn't put my camera directly on the thread too many times, and that's because I was using a Manfrotto head in order to get more dynamic movement. So a little tip, if you're going to be using the same tripod head as me, you need to have this thread. I believe it's a 1/8 thread. Make sure to purchase extra because I was shooting a video one time and I lost the little thread and it was like a horrible day on that day of production. The next thing on the list is the battery, which is actually pretty good. It lasted me 1 to 2 hours as I mostly use the slider at 70 to 80%. That's a really great number to get from this little slider and the batteries that it uses. If you're going to be doing time lapses, you probably want to get yourself a dummy battery to get the most juice out of this. Regarding the speeds as well, I would never crank it to 100%. It was just a little too fast for me. So I always went for 80 to 90%. What's really interesting though, and something I didn't even expect from the slider is how silent it is. It's very, very quiet for the price. So if you want to use the audio that comes from the slider or whatever the slider is, panning to, it's actually very reasonable to use it as long as you're using it, I'd probably say around 85% or lower. Maybe give that a try and add a little bit of audio to your shots from the slider. This is the elephant in the room for this product, which is the application. Neewer, what were you thinking when you made this application? Did you just hand it off to the intern and say, do whatever you want? As this application makes absolutely no sense. Let's look at your standard A and B points. You would think that your A point is your starting point and your B point is your ending point, but there's an inverse relationship. Your A point is your ending point and your B point is your starting point. Once you set your A point, you can't go beyond that. If you place your A point at the very end, you can only go backwards. It's really confusing, and there are reviews on the App Store. It's been months and months and months. I have gotten very few software updates. Nothing has changed, and I don't see it changing in the foreseeable future. There's not even a back arrow to most of this, so a lot of times you have to kill and refresh the app. This is a huge reason why I can't recommend this to a majority of people. Apart from having a live mode setting, there's also a time-lapse feature, which I was kind of surprised to see. I'd probably recommend this slider to someone that wants to get into serious time-lapsing without having to break the bank. However, don't get the application-based slider. Get the analog one because it'll drive you absolutely bonkers. This slider can get very, very heavy very fast. I know that I said it was a light product, But the way that I use it, I place this on top of my Manfrotto tripod along with my Manfrotto head, and it looked like an absolute transformer. If you went out there, this was just a giant attraction magnet. I did run into a few problems too. When I placed the Manfrotto head on top of this slider, there tended to be a lot of unbalance. A lot of the shots, I was unable to use the entire railway of this product. It definitely was annoying to constantly have to, make sure I don't go beyond a certain point and not get the full range of motion. So where I think I should have done was buy a few sandbags in order to keep the tripod from moving around too much. A nuanced problem that you'll definitely run into is the amount of time that it takes in order to set up a lot of these shots. Now, if you've seen my examples, you probably think that I just place the slider, hit the camera, and then called it a day. But definitely keep in mind that in order to get the best dynamic movement and beautiful shots, it's going to take quite a bit of time. Especially if you're using a setup like mine, where you have a head on the top and then you have the legs at the bottom. Moving that thing around, setting it up, and finding the focus will take quite a bit of time. You're going to be spending like 20 to 30 minutes setting it up sometimes. So keep that in mind. Prepare your shots beforehand to get the best results. The build quality, the price, what I think about that, how I personally use this slider, and I just can't recommend it to those that are looking for a budget slider. I think you're much better off with a traditional slider that you crank manually, but I think it's a great option for those that want to get into making time lapses but not break the bank. If you want to get this slider because you're on a tight budget, I say go with the analog one. Go with the one with the hard remote, because it's honestly a miracle that this even connects to my Bluetooth device. Don't get the app version, spend the extra $30 on the hard remote, and you'll have a much better experience. I hope that one of these days they fix the A and B point function. That's the review. Those are my thoughts, my opinions. What do you think about the slider if you're about to purchase it or you already own it? How do you deal with this application? It's built like in 1997 or something. Thank you, Antonio, for watching my videos. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Next week, I'll be picking someone from the comment section to give a shout out to at the end of my videos. At the end of the day, I thank you so much for your time and your attention. My name is Isaac Mihangos, and I'll catch you in the next one.